easy, and as we got you, he's flattened himself down. But what a great low angle this is. Beautiful. There we go. That's a bit better. Well, it looks like for the time being he may be comfortable in this spot, so I don't think we're going to lose him, and this may be a good opportunity to send you across to Brent and James, who are continuing to search Djuma for anything exciting. So why don't you jump on board with them and see what's happening on the other side of Djuma. We're on the western side now, they are on the east, and they may have some interesting intelligence or updates for you, and we'll be waiting here with Madiba when you get back.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Mahindra, our South Asian member of our staff. Doesn't have a name yet other than Mahindra, and this just gives you an impression of what we do when we're not on Jigger or Wendy. We drive about, we put somebody with good eyes on the front of the tracker seat. Give everyone a wave, Brent. Yes, and his job is to look at the road and see if he can find some tracks. I am trying a new driving style as we speak, sitting upon the door. If the screen goes black, it is because I've had a large-scale automotive accident. I'm not convinced about this particular driving style because I'm actually completely unable to reach the brake from where I'm sitting. A longer person may not have the same troubles. What we did do while in your absence last time was go and try and have a look at a bush baby nest, which Brent found the other day. There were no bush babies there within, as far as we could tell, and I also luckily didn't plummet to my death from the tree in which I was sitting. So our plan from here is to continue. We're now on the eastern boundary, on the cheetah cut line, so named because there's never ever been a cheetah seen here, or certainly not by me.
And Jamie seen the cheetah here.
Okay, so there have been some cheetahs seen here. That is good news. And we are just hoping against hope that there will be some kind of track wandering across here. And I have, oh sorry, I'm also being reminded that I saw a cheetah here at one stage. So please ignore everything I've said up to this point about cheetah. But we have been astonished by the lack of tracks crossing over the sort of freshly moistened roads over the last few days, and I don't know where everything's gone. But I'm most pleased that sorry, I'm not allowed to call him that anymore, Madiba, aka Nelson Mandela, has made his reappearance there in the southern reaches of Djuma. Hopefully his mother and his grandmother will come back soon too. Now his grandmother has been conspicuous by her absence for the last little while. We think possibly because she's being pushed across to this particular area around here by Shadow and by another leopard called Kwatile coming up from the south.
And in Kanyanini from the east.
And in Kanyanini from the east, according to Brent Leo Smith. So lots of pressure from the various leopards, and of course that's not uncommon for a female leopard for her territory to shrink under pressure from her daughters and granddaughters. It's a little bit like the human being that has a farm and has to cut it in half for his sons. That's actually exactly what it's like. Anyway, whether she'll reappear or not, we're not sure. But the other good news that I heard yesterday was that Mvula, a male leopard, my particular favorite, because he's not very large, a bit like me, and he was seen yesterday on a kill somewhere south of us, I think on Cheetah Plains, was it?
Chitwa.
On Chitwa.
Directly south of where we're going to join our southern boundary.
Direct south of where we're going to join our southern boundary. Brent's microphone is not working, by the way, so if he sounds like he is hailing you from a distance, it is because his microphone is not working. Sorry about that. So we're hoping maybe we'll pick his tracks up or any other tracks. And then some fascinating information just coming in from Safari Haze that Quarantine Mvula's son was seen with him the other day. Now that's wonderful to know. And we have lots of questions while we drive along about the skills of various mammals as fathers specifically. And normally we have to give people the disappointing news that the male of whatever species we happen to be looking at is a dreadful parent, while the mothers are left to do all the work. And so it's very nice to hear that Quarantine is being mentored by Mvula. Well, we hope he's being mentored, and that they have been seen together. I must say, I think that's a very nice thing to hear, and I'd love to see them together. So, Safari Haze, whoever gave you that information, perhaps you could ask them to send Mvula and Quarantine this way, so that we might show them to you.
Well, the only tracks are white mongoose heading south.
And hyena.
And now hyena.
Keep your eyes open, Brent.
Let's check. The hyena tracks are even over. So they're from yesterday. The white-tailed mongoose tracks are over today.
So I don't know if you can hear Brent. He's saying that there are lots of white-tailed mongoose tracks going down the road, one or two hyena that have been driven over from yesterday, but nothing in the way of lions. We did hear the lions calling here yesterday. Brent and I are doing our sort of mock-up of the sunset chat, if you like, next to the stinking carcass of an old buffalo, and we did hear lions calling far to the north and hoped that they would come south, but that doesn't appear to have been the case. And we've been listening to the Game Drive radio all morning, and nobody has found sign of the lions in any of our traversing areas. And thank you, Marla, for your pointing out that this is truly the safari view from the vehicle. Yes, this is basically, if you were on safari, this is what you would have. You would have some gimp like me blethering information at you, hopefully entertaining, and in the front of the vehicle you would have the real bush person watching the tracks and keeping an eye out and spotting. Not so, Brent?
That is very true, but he might be a few shades darker than I.
Indeed. Normally a Shangaan tracker, because the Shangans have a massive tradition of excellent tracking in this area, and especially when it comes to things like leopards and lions. Now, on the subject of leopards, let us head back to young Madiba, the first president of South Africa, with Scott, who is repositioned, and we'll link back to him. Hopefully when you come back to us next, we will have something slightly more impressive. But a nice idea, and very good to talk to you, finally, live again. Bye-bye, and see you now.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm sure you all enjoyed that different perspective and view of James and Brent cruising down Cheetah Cutline. I look forward to having a peek at the highlights reel of the two of them in action. As you can see, nothing has changed here. He's still in the same spots. He is poking his head up and down every so often, but I think it could be his resting point for the next couple of hours. I hope he proves me wrong and gets up and continues to move, but I think we have exhausted our luck with this young male leopard already this morning. And why don't you guys decide what we do next? You can send in your thoughts to whether we should stay or go to hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And we're only going to take the first few votes, so be quick if you would like to have an impact or influence where we go next, or whether we do leave or stay. I can tell you though, to help make your decisions, that there's not too much else going on in terms of tracks or potential sightings, but the only way to find these things is to get out and explore. So it's a bit of a gamble, heading off into the unknown, but you've got to gamble every now and then and take the risk. Texan's making his way out of the sighting, so that's what you can hear in the background. Look at that flawless face of his, no scratches or scars. And Clay has just asked whether or not I think this leopard may have been in a fight, and I think it's highly unlikely that he has been in a fight. We would be able to see some scars or scratches, and he probably wouldn't be alive if he had been in a fight. Young leopards aren't going to fight with one another, and if he did get caught out by a bigger leopard in a fight, it probably would have been the end of his career here. So I really don't think he's been in any serious confrontations. He would have certainly had to run for his life on a number of occasions, but I don't think he has been in a fight. And his pure, clean face, free of scratches and scars, even his ears don't have any notches in them yet, is a good indicator that he is still young and flawless, but in the coming years he is going to certainly get into a few tussles with other leopards, and that's when we'll start seeing the scratches on his muzzle as well as notches in his ears. Now, leopards will have varying amounts of notches and scars depending on the individual, and a lot of the notches on the ears are caused from possibly even mating, when males and females lash out at one another after the copulation. It's a very painful process for both male and female, so things often get quite heated. So it can be a combination of mating and territorial bouts that cause leopards to get their scars and features. So a lot of reports have come through of audio that's been heard on the various waterhole cams, one at Djuma and one at Arathusa, and Wildy heard leopard calling somewhere around Arathusa last night, and would like to know how far does the sound of a leopard's rasp travel. It's a tricky one, Wildy, because it all depends on how sensitive the microphones are and receivers at the waterholes, and I'm told they are very good, but obviously it's very different to the human ear, and maybe it can hear better than we could. But for me, especially at the moment with the vegetation being very dry and open, you can hear a leopard's call from about 2 to 3 kilometers away at the maximum, so about a third as far as you can hear lions calling. And that will depend on a number of variables, the terrain that it's in, whether it's undulating or very thick. And also what makes it complicated is I don't know exactly how well the audio is picked up by the microphones at the waterhole cameras, but I'm guessing, and this is just a guess, that it would have to be within a mile radius of the waterhole camera at a maximum for it to be able to pick up that audio, and in all likelihood I would say even closer than that. So I would say less than a mile away would be a safe distance for the waterhole camera to pick up the leopard's rasp. And if you do go within a mile radius of the Arathusa waterhole, there are lots of hiding places, quite a few riverbeds, thick areas that are difficult to traverse and search for leopards. But who knows, maybe the guides there have got lucky and are enjoying a sighting of a leopard now. There's no way of me being able to find out unless I drive onto Arathusa and get closer to them so that I can be in radio comms with them. I'm currently a little bit too far away to be able to communicate with them, so sadly not sure whether they did have any luck finding tracks or maybe even the animal that you guys heard rasping. But thank you very much for those updates. So interesting. The voting has not led to a clear indication as to whether we should stay or whether we should go. So that makes it a little bit complicated for me because it puts the pressure on me to make this decision now. But let me try and rationalize what I think we should do with you. We have had a great sighting of him, and at the moment he's fast asleep. So I don't think we should stay any longer, even though if we did stay longer, who knows what we could see happen. Maybe his mother would come back and they would reunite. I mean, there's a never-ending list of things that could happen if we stay. One of the things that could happen is he could get up and move straight into this thick bush and we could not see him again. So that's one of the negatives. But I think the fact that we have already had such a wonderful morning with him, and the fact that there are so many other animals and scenery to see along the way, but I think we should continue. So I'm sorry if that wasn't your vote, and I completely understand and could very easily be on the stay here boat, but maybe we could come back later and see if he's still around. I think the temperature is also going to play a big impact on what he gets up to, and as it gets hotter and warmer, he's going to be less likely to be active. So maybe we can just take one last look at him, and for a few moments, and then I think we head off and see what else is happening. But I mean, you can look at that body language and tell that he is very comfortable. Hard to even tell that he's there. And I think that is our cue to venture forth into the unknown. Thank you, Mr. Madiba. And thank you to Aubrey who found him this morning, because if it wasn't with Aubrey, or if it wasn't for Aubrey, we would have had nothing to see here. try and negotiate our way out of this thick Tambuti cluster, which may take a number of short and sharp turns. I'm making a meal of this. It looks like we are stuck for the time being. And Lisa's just made a comment that he's so comfortable with the vehicles, and you're right, Lisa, he's incredibly relaxed around the vehicles, and that's probably because we've spent many an hour sitting with him, reassuring him that we are not here to cause him any harm. And he's at the point now where he doesn't even lift up his head or bat an eyelid when we arrive, pushing over branches and bushes. He's completely comfortable with our presence. And sometimes I wonder to myself, when he is, especially when he's left alone, if he doesn't actually appreciate our presence because it's a little bit of company. I'm certainly not saying that he is attached to us, but I think a little part of him every now and then is happy to see us when he's left alone. Some spectators to watch him showing off, like this morning, catching his prey. He kept looking up at us, almost waiting for a round of applause. Try and choose the easiest way out of here. Okay, well, we've just got a request as we move out of the leopard sighting, and it's from Liz in Wisconsin, and she's wanting us to find her any signs of spring. So I'll certainly be keeping an eye out for anything blossoming or blooming, some signs of spring. There's some interesting bulbs that I've noticed, and we think it's some kind of a squill, which is basically a bulb, and you get many different types of squills that shoots up these beautiful flowers of various sizes, and it's often just one stalk blooming with flowers. And I've noticed one type. James and I found it while we were on tracking team the other day, and I know where there is one hiding, so that is going to be one of the signs of spring. And I'm sure James and Brent will also be able to, in a good position, to try and get you up close to any different signs of spring, because they do have the ability to jump on and off the vehicle. And often the tiny little shoots of spring and signs of spring will be best shown from a close proximity, and they can get to those nice close angles and low angles with the walking backpack. Squirrel comes to mind as an initial thing to look for. The ones we actually saw were all the way up on Cheetah Cutline, which is where you were driving with James and Brent earlier. But there's a few more that I've seen popping up closer to the quarantine clearing, so I'll certainly be able to show you one towards the end of the drive if we don't find anything else interesting before then. plan now is to slowly head back up in the direction where we actually came from, and that's the direction that I think this leopard's mother that we just left was moving and hunting in. And maybe we'll get to see her on the hunts. Imagine if we see him earlier on in the morning with a gerbil kill, well, a gerbil kill, kind of, a gerbil catch that he sadly lost, or sadly for himself. It's very good news for that little gerbil. But imagine if we get to see his mother also hunting a little bit later on. That'll be incredible to see mother and cub catch something on the same day. It'll be something that I'm sure hasn't been documented or captured before. Look at how awesome this is. I mean, the bush was so dry just a few days ago, and not only dry, it was also very hazy. So I'm going to start off by showing you how the moisture levels have changed drastically, and this small little pond would have been naturally created by animals who wallow in the mud. Animals like warthog, elephants, rhino, all love to bathe themselves in these small wallows, and that naturally excavates them. And it also creates a natural little puddle, and it's something we can look forward to seeing in the hotter months of the year. Even hyena will lie up in small puddles like that to keep cool. Now, another thing I would like to show you that you probably haven't seen for some time is a view off to the mountain range in the distance. It's still a little bit hazy, but it will continue to become clearer and clearer as we get more rain. And John, if you don't mind panning to the left, there's a small little range of mountains that I would like to show everybody. It's still actually within the Sabi Sands. It'll give you an idea of how far the Sabi Sand stretches from where we are. Still further, Andre. There they are. So those little mountain ranges are in the same reserve that we are in, and there's a fence basically on the other side of them. And there's a lodge on one of those rocky koppies called Ulusaba, the place of fear. Beautiful. Is so clean at the moment, it's hard to describe. You can't breathe in enough of it, and maybe it's just after all the dry and dusty months we've experienced that I'm not used to it, but it really does feel like we are breathing in the cleanest, freshest air on the planet. It's almost got a taste of freshness to it. And the temperature at the moment is also very nice. It's not too hot. There's a cool breeze blowing. And in the next few weeks we're going to see a massive change, even in the next few days, in greenery and growth around this area. There's not too much evidence at the moment, but the amount of rain that we got a few days ago is certainly going to be enough to cause a surge of green, and the sunny weather that we're experiencing today may help the plants to really boost out their new shoots and new growth. Now, this is my earpiece causing trouble again. Shouldn't be. Now, a lot of you may be wondering why a lodge would be called Place of Fear, and you'll have to ask Richard Branson that because he owns that lodge, and maybe it just sounds dramatic and dangerous of being on the dark continent, which is Africa. I'm not too sure though, but that is just the name of that specific lodge. And it's one of many, many lodges within the Sabi Sands. There are probably in excess of 20 lodges in the whole of the Sabi Sands, some of which are small and only cater for a few guests, others may be much larger. And there's a huge variance in prices of the camps you stay at and experiences that you will get at each camp, even though you are in the same place with the likelihood of seeing very similar sightings or animals. The experience will naturally be very different between each lodge. They cater for different niches of clientele, and it's worth doing a lot of research before you come out to any camp in Africa or the Sabi Sands, because there is a multitude of different options, and it's best to try and really work out which is going to be the best for you before you rush out here. So a few tiny shoots growing on a silver cluster leaf tree. So let's take a closer look for some signs of spring. I mean, it's ever so slightly, if I am even actually seeing the right thing. Let me just get my binoculars out. There's a few tiny little white tips. Oh no, those are old news. Those are the old dried out white buds. So still no sign of growth coming out of this silver cluster leaf. Those little white tips got me excited. But we must keep watching closely, because like I say, after all that rainfall that we did receive, it's not going to be long before we see the trees responding with some vigorous growth. Hello Barbara, and good to have you on board with us. Barbara's interested to know the differences in the seasons that we experience out here. And unlike some countries and places and cities, we don't have four very distinct and clear seasons. And it's basically summer and winter really, almost split up into equal 6-month portions. The spring and the autumn aren't necessarily as clear and well noticed or noticeable as they are in other parts of the world. And what we'll notice now as we are in our spring, but essentially summer, we'll just notice a continual increase in growth and vegetation, as the rainy season is in our summer months. So the rain gives the plants all the water they need to grow, and the sun and the heat allow them also to grow very well. And that will be up until about February or March next year. So October, November, December, January, February, March, and then it starts drying up for the other 6 months of the year, which is our winter, our colder and drier months. One bush that I have seen, oh there we go, there's one that I have seen sprouting. There's one a bit closer to the road that we can get. It's called the Bushman's Grape, and here's some right here. This has been one of the earlier bloomers out of most of the vegetation, and you'll be able to see here the tiny little shoots and growths coming out, but most of the plants aren't quite ready yet, and this plant next door is certainly alive, but it has not started shooting up the precious nutrients and resources that it's been saving in its roots mainly during the winter. It's going to wait now, and in the next few weeks it's going to invest them up into the leaves and branches of the tree, as will a lot of the trees around us here. Some of them still have a few leaves that survived the winter miraculously, but the majority of the trees have been plucked by the animals, or the leaves have simply fallen off, but that will change. And where I'm standing now, and you can see me, in a few weeks' time you won't be able to see me if I'd be standing here. This is going to be completely thick and overcrowded with leaves, and our job of finding animals is going to become trickier. But like I said earlier, I think one of my theories as to why we still manage to find animals in the very thick conditions in the summer is that they may stick to the roads more often and stick to the open areas. And that kind of makes sense, because just like us, animals try and take the path of least resistance. In winter, you can walk around anywhere, be it even we can, the animals can, without getting snagged up and caught on things. But in summer, when everything's thick, you can't even see where you're standing because the grass is so long. It becomes a different story. So that's why I think we still manage to find animals in the summer. Well, I'm sure a lot of you must be wondering what James and Brent are up to, and there's only one way to find out, and that's to head on across to them. So enjoy, and I wish I was coming along to see what they are doing as well, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Bobby, come back. This magnificent sky tree, Crocea bracteola, or the weeping bean. Now, what is interesting about this tree? Well, there are a number of different things about it. But first, my colleague Graham Smith and I understand the concept of this, of course, but apparently bark can be used to cure hangover. I mean, I don't know over 6, so I wouldn't know that that is true or not. So sorry about the audio, apparently it is breaking up slightly, and breaking up is this thing here called a bracket fungus, and the bracket fungus likes to grow in moist, wet areas at the base of these trees, and also on trees that have a fairly soft heartwood, in a wood that is eaten out by things such as borer beetles. Yes, indeed, wicked fungus, not edible, fairly disgusting. And apparently we've had a question about land snails.
welcome back everyone. And this long-tailed shrike has just made a kill. It's got a scorpion. Look at this. Incredible. It's difficult to see very clearly, but you can see the sting of the scorpion hanging down. You can also see the pincers. I can't tell what kind of scorpion it is. It's a bit too far away. And look, it's going for the sting now. It's trying to get rid of the dangerous end. Oh, poor scorpion. Lucky bird though. Tasty breakfast. Swallowed. Job done. Just like that. He swallowed the whole scorpion whole. Imagine having a scorpion wriggling around in your belly. Well, that's what this long-tailed shrike is experiencing at the moment. And it looked like I got a kind of good enough glimpse to say that I think it's a hairy, not a hairy, thick-tailed scorpion. A lot of the scorpions don't actually have common names, but that one didn't look highly venomous. It had quite big pincers, and it looked like an Epistophalmus glabifrons, which is the same scorpion that VM spotted just the other day. And it's just making sure its beak is nice and clean. And that scorpion that we did spot the other day, or VM spotted it, was on the ground, and they do move around. And maybe the shrike got lucky and saw the scorpion doing some housekeeping around its excavation or burrow. This specific scorpion that it just ate lives in burrows in the sand. A lot of the other scorpions will live in the cracks of the bark and trees. And not our first scorpion that we've seen being eaten recently. Not long ago when we were testing out a night camera, we got to see the white-tailed mongoose eats a scorpion. Well, glad we managed to rush you back from James and Brent just in time, and I'm sure you enjoyed the brief change of scenery. Still fine-tuning that equipment and trying to get it working as well as we can. Still experiencing some audio issues, which I think you guys got a little taster of there. But isn't it fun to just be able to show you guys a different perspective and a few different angles on this experience, even if the audio isn't perfect. We're certainly not going to settle for that, but for now I think it's great that you can be involved in this whole process, and then you'll all really be able to appreciate the equipment when it is working 100%, which hopefully won't take our tech wizards too much longer to work out. Well, a morning of carnage and destruction. Sandile with a gerbil kill. Well, I mean, that one got away. The scorpion wasn't so lucky, but not often are we get to see so many kills or action taking place like that. Molly on Twitter, good to have you with us. And Molly would like to know whether we have the olive frog out here, and not that I know of, but I do need to go through the frog book now that it's frog season again and refresh my rusty memory. But it doesn't ring a bell. There is a host of different frogs and toads that we will get to show you over the coming months. And not only that, Molly, but the chameleons that you asked after are also going to be starting to move around now, and they're going to become a lot easier for us to see. And the best time and most likely time for us to spot them is actually at night with the spotlights. During the day, I'm trying to think of a good way to explain this to you. I think there's an option here an opportunity to hear. Basically, during the day, if a chameleon was in a bush like this behind me, it would blend in very, very well with the colors, using its camouflage abilities and the abilities to be able to alter its colors depending on the substrate that it's on. So if it was in this bush, it would be green. If it crossed the road, they go a yellow color. So they can't always match the exact background of where they are. Some chameleons can, but the flat-necked can't quite do it exactly right. But they will be able to change from a green color to a yellow color as they cross the road. But during the day, it's very, very difficult to see them unless they are crossing a road, and even then a lot of people don't see them and squish them. But at night time with the spotlight, what you'd be looking for is something like the color of this one leaf here. So this one leaf is just a slightly paler shade to the rest of this bush, and when you're looking for chameleons at night with a spotlight, you are looking for a slightly lighter shade. So it's essentially a dead leaf with the shape of a chameleon. And the chameleons, if you're looking at a side profile, have got a very distinct pose and posture with their head and body, and their tails all curled up like a sausage, like a Swiss roll. So if you get that side profile of a dead leaf coloration, the shape of a chameleon, you know you're in luck. And it's something that often astonishes guests when they are out here on safari, and you can be driving very quickly and spot the tiniest of little chameleons. They will be hatchlings this big soon, and there'll also be much larger ones, the adults that we get to see. So we'll be able to show you a host of different sizes, but all the same species, all the flap-necked chameleon here. But you can imagine driving along in the dark, all of a sudden your guide jams on brakes, reverses, and reveals this tiny chameleon, and people cannot understand how on earth you've seen him, but it's actually quite easy, and guides get a lot of undue credit for spotting a chameleon, and the hard work that the track and guide have done tracking and finding a leopard can often be kind of seen as the norm, but your spotting of the chameleon is the highlight of your guest stay, which is actually quite frustrating because it requires no skill. Well, not no skill, but not as much skill as tracking down a leopard. Anyway, that's just some interesting kind of behind the scenes of what us guides get up to, and you naturally ride the wave and act like you are the greatest thing on earth for spotting, you have the greatest eyes on earth for spotting this chameleon, and you don't necessarily tell them how easy it is. But I guess that depends on the guide and depends on the specific set of guests. Really enjoying the fact that a lot of you are showing a keen interest on a lot of the smaller critters that we have seen and are going to see. And Spusiso, aka the Black Mamba in Hermanskraal, as one of our South African viewers he's pointed out that scorpions and snakes are venomous. You are 100% correct, Spusiso. Where you've gone wrong is that you've then said they are therefore poisonous. And then how can that bird that we've just seen eat a scorpion without becoming intoxicated? And the reason is in the words that you've used. Venom has to be injected into your bloodstream, and that's why you use the word venomous for things that can sting you and that can bite you. And you use the word poisonous for things that you can ingest. So poison needs to be eaten in order for it to affect you. You can pour poison over your skin and nothing will necessarily happen. It does depend, but basically poison needs to be swallowed, venom needs to be injected, and that's why that long-tailed shrike could feed on the scorpions, sting and all, without worrying about having any negative effects. And it's the same for the snake eagles or any of the birds of prey or animals that eat snakes. You can even drink the venom of snakes, provided you've got no abrasions or cuts in your mouth. It shouldn't and won't have any effect on you. So that, I'm sure, is not only cleared it up for you, Spusiso, but for a lot of people. They often get venom and poison confused and use the words synonymously. I don't know if that's the correct word to use, but they are certainly not synonyms. They're two very different things. Now, we are approaching the small squill. That's a plant that grows from a bulb, and it shoots up an arm with flowers, or a branch with flowers coming out of it, and you get lots of different types of squills. The one squill that we'll get to see is the tall white squill. This one is a cousin that we haven't been able to identify exactly which one it is, but as part of our research, we actually dug one of them up whilst we were on tracking team. James and myself, we were tracking a leopard and got distracted, and then all of a sudden we were sitting down digging like little children with sticks until we managed to excavate a bulb about the size of an apple. And it's going to be quite nice to show you what is above the ground now that we know what is below. Now, where is this little squill? There's one here somewhere. It's right at the entrance to some of the accommodation where half of our crew stay, the other half stay not too far away. Here it is. So I'm just going to jump out. And this is a certain sign of spring. We've only noticed them popping up very recently. And isn't it interesting how this shoot comes up from, like I said, quite a large bulb that's probably about 6 inches under the ground, and out from that bulb pops this pretty little stalk. Sadly, the flowers aren't open at the moment, but all of these little buds will open up into little flowers, and we'll be able to show you more of them. There's quite a few around various parts of the reserve, but also a very clear sign of the springtime. I just heard Craig trying to get a hold of me earlier. He probably wants an update as to where we left Madiba, so I'm just going to be giving him a quick chat, an update. Craig, and I certainly would also be celebrating if I was in Impala. We did go past a herd earlier that were literally pronking and jumping, and you can imagine being a herbivore and only having this very dry grass to feed on. For months on end, it's been an incredibly dry season, drier than normal. There goes Eugene, our tech wizard. Morning, Eugenie. He's such a wonderful man. We're so lucky to have him around. He doesn't like being in front of the camera, so he's going to remain anonymous for a lot of you, but we'll try and sneak the odd picture of him that we'll add onto the tweets. But he is a pivotal member of our team who, just because you don't get to see him or hear him speak very often or hear his name necessarily, that's not to say that he is not a wonderful member of our team. And the amount of problems that he has to solve on a daily basis is astonishing. And very often he'll just be at the verge of finishing one problem, and then somebody will appear out of the shadows and tap him on the shoulder and say, Eugene, when you finished here, we've got another problem for you to come and solve. Andre spotted a troop of vervet monkeys up ahead, so let's see if we can catch up to them. They're an animal we don't get to show you very often. and they're running past our old fireside chat spot, which is just up to the left here. It's not an old fireside chat spot, it is the fireside chat spot. And let's see if we can get you a view of these monkeys. Now, interestingly, they're trying to hide from us, but there's some here and some in this marula tree, so I'm going to leave it up to Jean-Andre. Okay, we're going to cut to James. We're going to crash cut to James quickly.
Hello everybody, we're back with the Mahindra, and we're looking at some drongo. I think I have everything, it looks to me. They may of course be involved in that other likely violent activity, the mating, but I'm not really sure. Brent, what do you think they're doing?
I think they're definitely, the one on top really got its upper hand. It's almost, when I was looking through the lens there, it looked like grabbed the other's tongue almost, and had its beak inside the beak. You guys, we can't see what the camera's seeing, but it is very much around the face of the drongo that's on the ground. This looks to be a very serious fight.
Yes, it certainly does. It's positively vicious. Not quite like WWE fighting. This is very genuine violence taking place in front of us. And I suspect it's because we're heading towards spring. Well, we're in the spring now, and obviously the competition for territory, female, is going to be that much heavier. But, I mean, this looks like it could result in death almost. Now,
the one on the bottom does look like he's running out of a bit of steam. And the guy on top doesn't look like he's about to let up either.
It is quite disturbing, I must say. It's not, well, one doesn't like to see too much violence, especially from birds, which I suppose we tend to think of as sweet songsters of the morning, rather vicious killers of mankind. See in place there. Check with your just see if there's any kind of blood damage.
But I can see it's the one on top has literally almost got it by the throat.
Blood. Sorry about the audio.
Oh, there I can see it now.
Can you? Looks like a hold. That drongo really move.
Definitely not.
Right, I have my binoculars up. They're used by Field Marshal Irwin Wall during the desert campaign. That is the guy. I think I know that.
Completely. It seems to be getting weaker.
Actually, very. Horrible.
Sort of biting his neck like a lion would.
Yeah.
Still a bit of fat in him, but very little.
Turn the slightly. I can't see the colour so similar that you can really see where one starts and ends. There we go. Get away. Oh, no, from top. I'm able to punch in on the feet there. Yeah. So everybody, if the picture is at the table, it's because there's fairly heavy gale blowing, and second, we set this up very far, so it's not Veerman holding it. Clearly he does have the hands of a surgeon. This is vicious. The amount of energy being used there is astonishing.
Almost sounds distressed, sort of a give.
Now, if I was a little gabbar gulk or a sparrowhawk, something like that, I would come and make a meal of these drongos. The one is definitely, I think it's bigger.
Maybe a bit bigger.
And probably
It's over.
gone. No, here we go. Saying they just won't let each other be. Well, I'm quite glad that that's ended, I must say. That's quite distressing to watch. Vice, of course, is a way of life. And we're just trying a new thing with the microphone. I feel like I'm a reporter coming to you live from Beirut during the conflict there, and where we have just watched the violence, of course, the Drongos as the humans were fighting with each other there in Lebanon at that time. Hello.
Hello, James.
Will they fight to the death, do you think? This is a question from Anna Marie, Brent.
Well, I think given the opportunity they would, and I actually thought it might be a death this morning, but fortunately for the smaller, it seemed Drongo that was on the to escape. I thought those losers towards the end started sounding like submissive noises. It changed from that to sort of like it sounded like a dismissive call rather than that initial aggressive call that we were doing.
Lots of comment Twitter, missing a couple of names. Our comms are a little bit difficult today, but you said it looked as if the larger one gone for the throat. Absolutely, it looked like they'd gone for the throat, and then it looked like they were going for various parts of the body as well. We had the throat, they were attacking the beak, so just, I think it looked to me like the subdominant one was holding onto the dominant one's beak so that it could stop it grabbing at the throat. And I think it's probably a territorial dispute. Have a look at Brent's camera here.
There we've got a shot of them beak to beak. But fascinating.
Right, so,
but fascinating. I've never seen a Drongo fight go on that long and with that much aggression.
Brent will post this on Twitter and hashtag Safari Live, because Brent is a very good tweeter. And I mean, you do see drongos quite a lot. I mean, they fight, they bomb other birds quite a lot. They bomb all the eagles, they bomb owls, pearl-spotted owls, and probably they clearly bomb each other.
They're very, very aggressive little birds. But I mean, that was an unbelievably fascinating interlude, and definitely not something James and I have seen before in our past years in the bush.
Yes.
So, and on that note, we're going to send you back across to Scotty, and hopefully before the end of drive we might be able to find something else interesting.
Something perhaps a little less violent. See you just now.
Some cuddly bears.
Like this microphone.
Welcome back, everyone, and what an interesting sighting you've all been lucky enough to share with James and Brent and Viam. It sounds like quite a hardcore fight between those drongos, and isn't it wonderful how we often get surprised out here, getting to share new experiences and moments with all of you. As you can see, Jeandre and myself have not moved from the place where you left us, and these three vervet monkeys are enjoying the vantage point from their perch high up in a jackalberry tree. What am I saying, a jackalberry tree? Apologies. An apple leaf tree. And it looks like they're also enjoying not only the view from up there as they scan their heads around, but also the morning sunshine. You can tell that it's quite breezy, and it's a cool breeze. Some leftover effects from the cold front that brought us that much needed rain a few days ago. Great, well, we're going to leave these monkeys to their own devices, and I'm going to actually take you to a spot where we had one of our best sightings of a black mamba, which is probably the most venomous and dangerous snake we encounter out here in the Sabi Sands. Its venom is highly neurotoxic, so it attacks your nervous system, and basically your organs will shut down, causing you to die. The good news is, if you do have a good first aider around there, as long as oxygen is kept pumped through your body, you can be revived with life support systems. So if you are bitten by a black mamba, just tell people to keep the oxygen pumping through your body, and that way you can stay alive. And the way that people would do that is through CPR. So that'll be the best way to keep somebody alive if they are bitten by a black mamba. And the sighting that unfolded was in this big marula tree to our left. And I'm just going to park the vehicle in a good spot where I can explain exactly how the sighting unfolded. We did have a few other sightings of black mamba, probably the same one in this clearing, or the same pair. They are territorial snakes. And just gonna stop here and talk you through what happened. So basically what happened was it was myself and Romeo, or Jason, one of the other cameramen who is studying at university now. We heard some Burchell starlings alarm calling, and they were alarm calling in this tree. I'm just going to go around here now. So they were up in this small jackalberry tree, and they were alarm calling and looking down into this area. Now it was in the summer months, early this year, and at that stage there was a carpet of green vegetation about this high, so not very high at all. And for me, I would have thought you'd be able to see a snake slithering through, at least the movements of the snake slithering through this short layer of green undergrowth, only about 4 inches high. And we got a glimpse of the snake initially, and it was somewhere around here. And as I was searching in this area and Jason was zoomed in on this area where we last saw the snake, I was standing on the bonnet of the vehicle looking down. We couldn't see anything there, and then out the corner of our eye we noticed that the snake had moved to here. And we sadly didn't get to film it, but the Burchell starling was actually flying above the snake, and out of the corner of the eye we saw the snake shoot up out of the grass and strike at the Burchell starling, which was flying above it. And then that helped us detect exactly where it was, and from here we followed the snake. It slithered up into this tree, and then if you go further up this tree, it slithered into this hole, and that was the last glimpse we got of it. I hope it's not in here now, but this is where the black mamba went. Oh. I'm not sure where my earpiece went. Here it is. So that was an interesting sighting we had of one of the most dangerous snakes we get in this area. Hopefully we'll be able to get to show you a few more in these summer months, and who knows, maybe it will be in that same very hole that I was just poking my finger into. Okay. Last station, go again please. And Anna Marie has just asked a wonderful question. She's interested to know if a snake eagle is big enough to handle a black mamba. And yes, most certainly. I wouldn't say a fully grown big black mamba, because they can be 3 meters in length and about this thick. So that's going to be too big for a brown snake eagle, or its cousin, the black-chested snake eagle, which we do see here from time to time. The snake eagles prefer snakes of anywhere up to about 6 feet in length. I would say would be the absolute maximum size for the snake eagles. Anything bigger than that they wouldn't be able to swallow, and they swallow the snakes whole, head first. And once I had an incredible sighting. We came across this brown snake eagle, and it had caught a boom slung, which is also a highly venomous snake. Thankfully for us as humans, they don't pose too much of a risk because they are back-fanged, so they would battle to bite onto you, and they almost have to chew their prey to get the venom in. Anyway, a highly venomous snake, the boomslang or tree snake, which the name directly translates from Afrikaans or Dutch into English. Boom meaning tree and slang meaning snake. Anyway, this brown snake eagle was finishing off a male boomslang. The males have got a bright green coloration, and I could only see about this much of the tail sticking out of the brown snake eagle's mouth. And it just had, I mean, you could imagine it probably had 3 or 4 feet of snake in its stomach and just about 6 inches remaining to swallow. And the snake wrapped its tail over the brown snake eagle's head and then down underneath its chin or its beak, and latched that final part of its tail, so it went out the left hand side of its beak straight over the head and then latched on, and the snake eagle could not get this tiny little bit of tail untangled over its head, but eventually it somehow managed to get that last bit in and swallow it. But it took it quite some time, and imagine how uncomfortable it must be having that long line of snake all the way into your stomach with the last little bit like a piece of spaghetti tied around your head that you can't undo or swallow. Another snake-eating bird, which we will hopefully get to see, there's not too many of them, is the secretary bird. It's such an interesting bird. I must actually get it out in the book and show you. Where am I going to find you? There we go. And Monica and Liz, happy to hear you were one step ahead and asking already if we do see secretary birds, and we do. Arethusa airstrip's the best place to see them. I've had quite a few sightings there. It's the bird on the bottom right here. It's got very long legs and this beautiful tuft of feathers that come off its head, and that's how they get their name, because it's like a secretary with lots of pins sticking out of her hair. Now, I haven't seen too many secretaries with a multitude of pins sticking out of her hair, but that's why it got its name. And with those incredibly long legs, what it does is it walks along, so it hunts by walking. It can fly from A to B, of course, but it walks through big open clearings, and it can hammer those feet down at incredible speed and precision to wallop the snakes on the head. So they do feed predominantly on snakes, but I've also seen them with the dwarf mongoose skull, so they will feed on small rodents, lizards, rats, insects, but they are snake hunting specialists and have got this incredible ability to, with extreme accuracy and speed, unleash those long legs and stamp down onto snakes' heads. That's another snake-eating raptor. But a lot of the eagles, even if they aren't specialist snake hunters like the snake eagles, they will also feed on snakes. Owls I've seen with snakes, spotted eagle owls, Verreaux's eagle owls. So the snakes are on the menu. Dangerous cuisine, but still fed on by a multitude of different birds as well as mammals. Blaine, haven't heard you before sending through any questions, so good to have you with us. And Blaine is interested to know how many young could a black mamba have, and I'm guessing somewhere between 15 and 30. It's a complete guess off the top of my head, and if any of you do know the answer to the likely amount of young a black mamba will have, please let us know. On the topic of the legendary black mamba that so many people have heard about but don't know the finer details of, and now Spusiso, who is also known as the black mamba, one of our viewers, that's his nickname, is interested to know, is it true that black mambas are one of the only snakes who will attack humans even if they are not provoked? And it depends on who you speak to, Spusiso, but you're speaking to me right now, and I will tell you categorically that unless you provoke a snake, it is not going to actively seek you out and attack you. Now, we need to be careful here, because if you walk into a little bathroom and there's a black mamba within that little bathroom, even though you are not provoking it, naturally you are very big, it is smaller than you, and it's in a confined area, so it feels threatened. It's got nowhere to go. There's 4 walls all around it. I think it's justified and rightfully so, it will attack you because it feels threatened. But I don't think that they will, if they are walking through the bush like this, see us and slither up to us and bite us. They will more likely do the opposite and try and slither away and escape. We're much bigger than them, we're certainly not going to be prey to them, so why would they take the risk unnecessarily of getting into a confrontation with an animal that is so much bigger than it? That's not to say, Spusiso, that they are very aggressive and they aren't scared of us as some snakes would be, even if confined. They know that they are highly venomous and they back themselves, but I don't think they are actively ever going to seek us out or bite us unless we do put them into a bit of a predicament. Come on, now we just need to see a black mamba. That would be great, wouldn't it? Touched on the fact that not only birds will feed on snakes but also some of the mammals, and Anna Marie would like to know what kind of snakes would dwarf mongooses feed on. Well, small ones would be my immediate answer to that, and they can't be very fussy, and a lot of the animals in this area will not know the difference between a black mamba and a broom slang and a house snake. They will see a snake and know that it is potentially dangerous to them and do their utmost to not get bitten whilst trying to kill it. Now, for a small animal like a dwarf mongoose that will often be preyed on by snakes, bigger snakes, pythons, an adult black mamba will equally be able to feed on and catch and kill baby pythons and baby black mambas. So even the same snake species that can kill them can be fed on by them when they are young and small. So because the dwarf mongooses are so small, Anna Marie, they are typically going to be attacking any snake as long as it's not big. It's getting really hot, so I'm going to take off my jersey. Another snake that I'd really love to show you and have actually probably had the best snake sighting of was of a puff adder. And it's a short and fat snake, quite sluggish, with beautiful, beautiful cryptically camouflaged markings. Also seriously venomous, but unlike the black mamba, whose toxin is neurotoxic, venom is neurotoxic, the black mamba is cytotoxic, and your flesh will rot away wherever it bites you. It often causes amputations if you are bitten by one of them. Okay, well, thank you very, very much, Pretty Nightmare, for confirming how many young or eggs a black mamba will lay. And I wasn't too far off. I said 15 to 30 according to Pretty Nightmare. It is between 15 and 25. So thank you so much for researching that and sharing that with us. Well, sadly it seems like the sunrise safari is coming to a close. What a great morning it's been. It's been wonderful to have you all along with us. And we must remember our gratitude and appreciation that we owe to Aubrey, who managed to find Madiba, that beautiful male leopard who we got to spend some great quality time with. And I'm sure a lot of you were happy to be involved in the first live kill, even though it wasn't a kill. I suppose that's almost the ideal. We get to see the action, but nobody gets hurt, and that little gerbil managed to run off to tell its friends the tale of what it's like to be in a leopard's jaws. An unlikely scenario, but what a great sighting it was, and happy to spend some time with him. I certainly hadn't spent too long with him for quite a while now, and it was good to get to see him again. Also great that James and Brent were out with Wiem on the walking backpack. I'm sure you enjoyed the moment spent with them, and especially that sighting of the fork-tailed drongos having a real battle. Really interesting, and I look forward to watching those highlights. It's not something that we get to show you very often. So it sounds like my earpiece has popped out again. And anyway, we are going to call it quits. My earpiece wasn't working, so I wasn't getting any signal from the directors saying that it is the end of the show. Anyway, thanks again. Thanks to Nikki and Tara in the final control room, and to Jean on camera. We will see you all on the Sunset Safari.